Hi everyone, this is Asim here. Welcome back to our channel. So in this second episode of the Bug Bounty series, we are going to talk about the second stage of the Bug Bounty cycle. That's the scope review part. So I would be talking as to how I choose my programs, and based on those factors you could as well do that. So if you are a beginner to it and you are trying to break into the private invite scheme, and which is only when you get some of the reports resolved on some of the public programs. So after you resolve the reports on the public programs, you get some points, and when you get some points, you get started with the private invites thing. And since private invites are basically looked by very few people compared to public programs, which are tested by a lot of people, so you get a fairly high chance of getting bugs on those programs, the private ones, right? So I would talk about those things like what factors I take into account, and I would show you some programs where you could also test them like these factors hold true. And then we're gonna move about some of the questions that people asked me. Some of the viewers asked about like some GitHub docs or how you could get some easy low hanging fruits on these programs. As I would show my journey as well. I would show some of the redacted reports of mine. And then in the end, I will talk about the CTA versus bug bounty thing, which one of the viewers asked me. So I replied in the comments, but I would like to address them in the video as well. So let's get started with the slides. So scope review for any program, these are some of the key factors that I take into account, and these are on the basis of their priority. Like the first one is the highest priority, and then last one is like it could be even ignored for me. So number of reports resolved is the topmost priority. So that gives a fair idea as to like if there are a lot of number of reports resolved, like there are thousands of reports resolved, so it's fairly easy to guess that a lot of people are finding a lot of bugs there, and company also working hard to resolve those. So that's why a lot of reports have been resolved. The second key factor that comes into play is assets. So if all the subdomains of a lot of websites are included in the asset scope, so that gives a large playground for me to work and to test exploits, to find some open dashboards or some other kind of stuff, right? So that's the second key factor. Then comes the payout. Like that's why you are into the bug bounty thing, that if the payout is not good, you won't waste your time on some other programs. So I decided very importantly, like if the work I put in or the time I put from my free time to work on these bug bounties, so I would expect a higher payout. And then there is the response efficiency, and the last point is the time to try and time to bounty. So response efficiency basically include these metrics as well, like response to time to try and time to bounty. So the recent payout that I got, which you would have seen on Twitter, so that program was based on these key factors. So it had over 500 reports resolved. It was a private program, but it had over 500 reports resolved. I checked on the activity, so one guy was finding a lot of bugs, and most of those were in $3-digit bounties. But a lot of bugs gives you confidence that since people are finding bugs, so you might as well do that. And all the subdomains were in assets, so that was the second factor was also taken out. Payout was good, so they had for critical, I guess they had $4,000, but it was like for both they were ready to award bonuses. And so this was awarded $8,000. Response efficiency was good, so they had like in 2 days they would be tracking the report, and in 10 days from the first day you have reported, you would be getting the bounty. So I was awarded in 7 days as well, and the track was also done in 17 hours instead of the 2 days thing. So all the factors match, and that's why I chose that program, and that was the success thing. So now let me show you some of the programs, and we would be looking at the HackerOne directory because that's where I mostly do bug hunting if I do. I am on other platforms as well, but I very rarely open them. I mean, I am quite used to the HackerOne interface, so that's why. So let's start them. So let me close this. So this is the active program thing. So there are other inactive programs as well, and then you would see that I have not ticked the offer bounties. So if you are a beginner, I would suggest that you don't tick this one, and rather come back to slides. I have the links in the description of these slides, and look at these key parameters, or better take a screenshot and keep it handy. Or once if you have done it for 2 to 3 programs, you would have it in your mind. So let me sort it based on the number of reports resolved. So here is the reports resolved, and when I click on this, it sorts in the decreasing order. So US Department of Defense, Verizon Media, Mail.ru, these all have like 8,000 reports, 6,000 reports, 3400, 2700, 2300. And the first program, the US Department of Defense, it looks like a VDP program because there are no bounties minimum and no average bounties. Whereas Verizon Media, Mail, RU and AT&T, these all have bounties paid. So now let's check these. So US Department of Defense, so the first thing that you will notice is it's a vulnerability disclosure program. So vulnerability disclosure programs is slightly different from bug bounties because they don't offer bounties for that. You would find bugs and you would get points based on the HackerOne system. So the points would be the same, reports would be resolved, everything would be same, but only difference is you won't get paid for it. So it happens that a lot of people do not look into these programs because there is no bounty being paid, and that's the key advantage to looking into these programs. Like if you are a beginner, I would suggest you start with one of these VDPs that I'm going to show here. So that would help you. Even I started with one of these VDPs. So I would show the redacted reports and how I got those bounties, and some of the docs are related to that. So you would see that there are around 8,000 reports which we already saw, and response efficiency you would see that it's 6 hours, so it's pretty good. So even if it's not exactly 6 hours, so you could be pretty sure that in the same day or in a day or two your report would be tried. So that's good, and this is very nice factor that in the past 90 days how many reports have been received. So around 1655 reports, and the last report was resolved a day ago. So you see that people have earned a lot of reputation due to this program alone. So if you come and find the scope thing, right? So any public facing website owned, operated or controlled by DoD, including web applications hosted on those sites. So if you find a website and you find a bug there, and if you are like, if you could be sure or you could verify that it belongs to DoD, so you could be pretty sure that they would accept it, try it and give you points for that. So that's the huge scope, right? So if I have found a website rather where the websites of Department of Defense websites, these are listed in the alphabetical order. So it might be that there would be newer websites which has not been listed here, and this is an archive of things. So if you go to the real current version of the site, you won't find this, or it would be difficult to find. So I would have the link of this as well in the description, so check that out. Then comes the Verizon Media. So Verizon Media is a huge, like it has a huge scope. Like even Department of Defense had a huge scope, but this has 58 scope, and most of these are like star.domain. So basically all the subdomains belong to, like they are in scope. And the good part, it's not a VDP, it's a bug bounty program, and that's why you could see the bounties are being paid out. Activity part shows that last 2 days bounty was awarded and all those things. So let's check the policies. So 8 hours is the first time to respond, so that's pretty good. 2 days is the time to try. 2 months, it's a bit slower I would say, but yeah, if the scope is huge, you could find a bug and then you could forget and move on. So let's check the scope here. So I remember the scope being huge. So the program scope, rewards, payout and all those things are listed here. So I'm currently focusing on only the response efficiency and the number of reports and all those things. So first we have sorted out based on the number of reports resolved, and then we are looking at those programs. So we check the scope. So these are some of the scopes which are eligible for bounties. Then they have explicitly mentioned out of scope things. Out of scope. Then if you come down, so yeah. Let me show you. So any Yahoo HK News, Yahoo HK Auctions, Yahoo HK Shopping, these websites, Yahoo Mail, then TW E-commerce auctions, Yahoo Search. A lot of these websites out of scope, right? In scope, star.tw.mail.yahoo.com. Out of scope is star.yahoo.com.tw. Yahoo Video, Yahoo Weather, Flurry. A lot of applications are there. Star.megas.com, star.gemini.yahoo. So a lot of domains, subdomains are there. So you could pretty much be sure all these Huffington Post, all the various country domains and their subdomains. So these are all in scope. So you could be like, you might find some bug in some of these, like there could be open dashboards or something. If you automate finding all the subdomains and then if you just take a screenshot or some other thing, like get the HTML file and then grep for some strings or something, you might find something, because there are a huge number of domains out there for this particular program. And the good part is it's not a VDP, so you would also get a bounty for that. Now let's come to the IBM. So IBM has around 1900 reports resolved, 3 assets. So if you check the first, let's check the average time. So it's 9 hours, so it's pretty good. Average time to resolution is 1 month, so that's fine. And since it's a VDP, so there is no bounty awarded. So the scope is, this program is limited to exploitable security vulnerabilities and CV. So even if you found a CV on one of the IBM products or their websites or services, so it would be pretty good. So if I think many people would have reported like scanned and all those things, like scanned reports similar. So that's that. So you could see people have got a lot of reputation just based on this program itself. Now coming to Ford is again like 1673 reports have been resolved, 29 assets in scope, 5 hours average time to first response, 3 days to triac, so it's good, about 1 month. So it's again a VDP, and that's why there is no time to bounty thing here. Eligibility is given, mentioned, and then if we check the scope, let's check the scope. So all assets in scope are on production, no VPN. So it also has a huge scope, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So all the subdomains of Ford.com, all the subdomains of Lincoln.com, Quicklane, Motorcraft. So there's a lot of domains, subdomains here. Now let's come to Sony. It also has around 1000 reports resolved. The assets in scope is not particularly mentioned because it has all the assets. It's again a VDP, 98%. It doesn't have the stats about the time to try and all those things. So recognition, once a report is resolved and closed, it's a +1 count on the public profile under thanks received, and be listed on Sony's Hacker 1.0 under Hackers Thank. So that's good. Security is providing a secure at Sony Finder t-shirt. Sony will use the mailing address provided. So they would also give you a swag in the form of Sony t-shirt. So they have also mentioned that due to COVID-19, Sony's swag is not being able to ship. So they would continue to award swag from their records once it's safe to do that. So scope is any security vulnerabilities that are identified in Sony products or website domains owned, operated or controlled by Sony. So if you find some open dashboards or any other low hanging like bugs, so if you report and you have figured out that it's a Sony product or Sony owned or controlled domain, so you could file a report and you would be eligible for the swag, I guess. So next is General Motors. It was not on this directory where we sorted out the list. So this is because I know about this program. I had also reported a bug some time back. So because there is no stats available here, so it's not mentioned in the directory when we sorted that. But I know it because I have personally reported, so that's fine. So 85 reports resolved in the last 90 days, 2 days ago, 453 hackers. So it's not as huge as those were, but the scope is quite huge. Like if the product belongs to GM, so you could be pretty sure that you could submit a report and you would get points about that. So any General Motor products or services, then they would like to hear from you. So you could submit a report and you could get the reward points and such. So let's come back to the slides. So this is pretty much covered, I guess. So these are some of the initial program findings. So one of my viewers asked that it's very tough to find bugs in public programs as they are heavily tested, which is true. But that's the only way to private program, which is also true, right? So how do you find? So these are some of the public programs like bugs I found, which you could see that these are not very high or super critical or super complex bugs. So the last 3 ones, there's clear text storage of credentials, leakage of database credentials, and all the 3 were found by one one GitHub doc, which I have also shown in the previous video. So this PHP info page was also based on I was looking for phpinfo.php for all the subdomains, and I found one which had that. So if you would have watched my previous video on bug bounty, I guess you have watched it. So in that I showed that there's a doc, this JDBC, which is basically a Java database connection string, and then the company name, then you would find. So these 3 bugs, the last 3 one, these I found based on this particular GitHub doc. Then there are some other GitHub docs which you could see. I have mentioned the link to these and a lot more of these in the description, as well as in the speaker notes, the slide on those slides. So the link of these slides and the link of these resources are in the description. So do check them. It would help you in some way. So another question one of the viewer asked was the difference between CTF and bug bounties. So I replied it there, but I thought I should address it in the video as well. So CTFs are very different from bug bounties because CTFs basically gauge the vertical knowledge of in a particular domain of cybersecurity, whereas in bug bounty you need to test real world production applications, and so you need to have a lot more knowledge about the systems in place. And in CTFs, the major difference between these two comes because in CTFs you know that this particular application is vulnerable and there is a bug, whereas in bug bounty you could be like looking on a domain or subdomain which won't have a bug, whereas on the other subdomain someone else might find a bug. So that's the difference. You might not be sure that when you are searching that time they have a bug. Maybe you are searching, then very next day they have shipped some code and then there is a bug that's introduced which the other person gets. Whereas in the thing is that the first person gets the bug, not the second one, right? Whereas in CTF, like all the teams, when the allotted time, they could get the bug and then they could exploit it in the same way. In CTFs, it's also mentioned like what category of bugs could be there, like web category or reverse engineering or cryptography and all those things. So these are some of my write-ups. So let me show you these. So it is from the CISA CTF, which is held annually. So it was for the qualifier rounds for the world finals in the region wise. So my team was selected for the India regions, and so for the qualifiers, this web challenge, it was solved by me for my team, and 71 other teams also solved throughout the world. So there was a web cache poisoning attack in this that had to be exploited to get the flag. Then there's this second one, it's a Google CTF bug. So around 46 teams solved. For my team, I solved this, the web challenge. So it had CSS, CSP bypass, and then CSS injection. Based on CSS injection, you had to exfiltrate some data. That data contained the flag. So it was also like super complex. You could easily gauge that around about only 46 teams solved. So it was super complex. So talking about CTFs, so this is the website CTF Time, where you could see the ongoing CTFs, and like if you could sign in and you could make teams and you could get rating country wise and your team wise. So currently like more Smokely Chicken is on the top, so similar to that. Our team also used to be in top 5 in India. Right now people are not doing, I guess, so it's not on very top. Then this Pico CTF. So since we are talking about CTF, so if someone is interested into looking into CTFs, so I would suggest start it from here. In my first year, some of the seniors told me about this, and it was pretty easy, like not pretty easy actually, not pretty easy, but very educative, and I learned a lot of things I didn't know about CTFs back then. And at that time it was Pico CTF 2017, I guess, or 2015, I'm not sure about that, but these are all good. So I would suggest that if you are going to start with CTFs, or even if you are just wanting to learn about security, do start with this. So let me know in the comment section if you want like a video on CTF challenges as well. I might do it in future, not right now. So this is the HackerOne CTF. So if you solve challenges here, you would get private invites. No, I'm not sure how much you get private invites, but you get some points, and based on that, private invites start getting to you. And then there's the resources also there where you could learn about the challenges from here. So that's pretty much about CTFs. So before I close the session for today, I would like to talk about the subreddit Hacking Simplified. We have around 55 members. I would urge you to look into subreddits if you find it interesting. Like the articles are there, I post daily. So you could look into them, you could ask questions there, you could discuss among other peers who are on, other redditors who are there. You could like collaborate on targets, you could post your own bug bounty tips and tricks, you could post articles, whatever you find. So that would be a healthy learning for all and would help the community grow. So that's pretty much all for today. Let me know if you want some other particular topics to be addressed. I would make a video on that. And regarding the tweet that I did, I am going to do a write-up and a video write-up as well. So probably the next weekend, by the next weekend you would see. So I would be tweeting on that, so you could check on my Twitter as well. So thank you everyone. Hope you had a nice learning session here.